Space nerds, we're going home. Yeah, I got to play Nyx in the Evocati 4.4 patch. I don't really usually go into the Evocati patches, but it is Nyx, and I wanted to see kind of what was going on. Now, I have a lot to say about this. It's an interesting addition. There's plenty to look at, and we're going to get into it, but first, a couple of things. Now, this is an NDA, so I couldn't take any footage, but I do have old gameplay footage from Levski back in the day when I was last playing on it. So everything you're going to see is from 2021, but a lot of it does look similar to Levski now, and we'll talk about that. The other thing to mention is that this is actually going to be on the same build as the previous patches we've been playing, so it's still not like a big move forward for the game in terms of the engine. It's more just focused on getting the system into the game. This is all right now. Okay, this is the first Evocati patch, so there's going to be a lot more added for 4.4, but right now, all we're seeing is just they want to get the initialized version of Nyx and Levski into the game. Because of that, it's not running great. It's actually split onto just 2 servers, Pyro's on 2 servers and Stanton's on Nyx, so Levski being very crowded during these early tests was getting very laggy, like the old days, Lagski. A lot of people remember. This doesn't really worry me that much. Everything is kind of laggy when it gets added in, but we'll see how it progresses from here. My server frame rates were around 15 and my client frame rates were around 30 on Levski, but once I got out of Delamar, my client frame rates were around 60. But it does feel pretty empty. Now, there's a lot more NPCs than there used to be in Levski, which is nice. They're all talking, they're walking around, some of them are doing stuff, many of them are glitched through the floor. But there are also a lot of players running around, and ships being collected. And to be quite honest, it does feel very claustrophobic. Now, I think that's kind of the point. It's an asteroid base, but it's a very big landing zone. It's just a lot of hallways. So it's going to be different from the other ones. And I think there is some level of that's expected. Levski is like a big central place in Nyx, but it's not necessarily a high population area like the cities that we're already in. So it'll be interesting to see how they try to balance that through natural in-game motivations and maybe not have too many players and NPCs at this location at any given time. But it's still a central location, so we'll see what's going to happen. This is only the first of several social areas in Nyx, so it's very possible that we'll see other places people get spread out. Because honestly, it doesn't make much sense in my head that Levski would be supporting thousands of people. There need to be other places around the belt. But it is a nice place. The bazaar is a pretty cool vibe. The just general areas definitely give you that sense that you're in an asteroid facility. And looking out now versus before is incredible. It is, you feel like you're in a city, but you look outside and there are massive asteroids floating around. You can see spaceships coming and going because there's high population at the time that we're testing right now. It's amazing to look at. This is a beautiful landing zone, and I think a lot of people are going to like making this home. And the whole place does feel a little bit expanded. Now, a lot of it is pretty much copy-pasted from Levski as it was before. That's to be expected. But we got the hospital now. We got new cargo facilities. We've got the exterior freight elevator areas, which is pretty cool. There is a space where you can EVA off the ground and just kind of fly. I still think this is going to be great for races. There should be a sport based on EVA racing because it's incredibly unique. There's nowhere else in the whole game you can do stuff like this, at least not with this much infrastructure nearby. There are also tons and tons of hallways and caverns throughout the bottom underbelly of Nyx, and you can do a lot of exploring down there. I think probably this is going to be some of the different ways that they lead into the municipal works. But there's also plenty of places you can tell are just kind of sitting there waiting for other content. For example, Recco Pataglia just put out a video talking about mission givers coming back into the game. Where she is supposed to be found, she's not. And you can tell that there are supposed to be people there, but for now, there's no content in that space. So you can see that this whole landing zone has been dropped in the expectation of more content and features coming in later. And this is how a lot of those locations were added in Stanton. Lorville, Orison, New Babbage, Area 18, they were plopped in, and honestly, you can still see with a lot of them that there are spaces there's supposed to be stuff and there just isn't. So for those who were expecting Nyx to be a new delivery of a landing zone, which we haven't seen in 5 years now, I think, 4 or 5 years, it's not. Squadron 42 is still not released. A lot of the people who would be working on this stuff still aren't. And while we can expect planet tech, narrative, weapons content, armor content, ships, and lightweight missions to be dropped into the game because those people seem to be able to focus on Star Citizen, a lot of folks still seem to be on Squadron. And without a lot of features to support more integrated and cool gameplay, like engineering, they're just not going to build out as many of the missions that they'd have to go back through and do again anyways. Speaking of contracts, there actually are some interesting ones to see here. So Courier missions might be back. I got to run a Courier mission in the Nyx system. I don't know if these exist in Stanton and Pyro. I haven't seen them in a long time. But I was sent out to a derelict ship out somewhere in the Glacium Ring, picked up a box from a derelict cutlass, did a little looking around, found a couple loot boxes while I was out there, grabbed that stuff too, and then turned it into the Nyx Castra jump point. It was fairly straightforward, and while I was out there, I flew around in my ship through the asteroid belt a little bit, and seeing it up close, you can tell very clearly this was built differently from the Aaron Halo or the Yella asteroid belt. This one has so many asteroids in it. It is dense. And you can also tell that there are bands to the ring. So when you're out there in the belt, you can see the separate bands of rocks. And if you fly to those bands, it's more dense in those areas. If you fly between them, it's less dense. So there are areas where you can get into dogfights and they could probably put more points of interest and stuff. But then there are points where there are much more dense clusters of asteroids. And one of the things that got me in Stanton was when you found asteroids that were mineable or interactable, you could always tell. You could see them in a cluster from a decent distance, and you knew they were going to be mineable rocks. But out here in Nyx, there's actually a lot of asteroid clusters that look the same. So you find yourself kind of more curiously flying around. Yeah, you're scanning, but you think there are more opportunities out there. And I did find salvage. I found salvage plates that I could take. I found minables we could get. Now, there are exclusive minables that are going to be added to Nyx. I don't know when those are coming in, but they are in the files. And I didn't have anything mining related, so I couldn't actually look into this while I was out there. But if you can only sell those or sell them for a higher profit in other star systems, the idea of going into the Nyx belt, and it's a pretty interesting belt, it's going to be fun to try and find the most valuable stuff, consolidate it, and haul it out of there, potentially over just to Levski if you want. I also got assigned a couple other contracts while I was out in the belt. I got a mercenary mission as an introduction to Intersect. They had me go out and fight a couple people on what was essentially a bounty mission. Once I completed that, it opened me up to do more mercenary missions for them. I also got a bounty that I was assigned out in the belt. There were interstellar cargo hauling contracts that you could take that went from Levski out to Orison, actually. And there were actually missing person missions too. These are a lot of missions that were taken out at 4.0 that haven't been added in because they just hadn't rebuilt them. I don't really know what's going on here, but I really do hope these make it to live because these are the kinds of missions that are great for newcomers and folks who just kind of want to fly around and see some of the space without getting into combat or danger. But the belt itself is an interesting location. I think it offers a lot of opportunities to CIG, and to be quite honest, I could care less about planets here. I think what CIG needs to do is take Nyx as an opportunity to really flesh out the space part of this game. They've got a massive asteroid belt. We know they're going to be plopping space stations in there. We know that there's going to be Vanduul ships patrolling. There's a whole ship-based version of Hathor in Rockcracker, and some narrative content that's being dropped in that's more space-focused. I say CIG should take the Nyx system and focus on fleshing out asteroid facilities, space stations, derelict spaceships, little settlements tucked into asteroids by the people who can't live on Levski. There should definitely be stuff on planets when it makes it in, but the asteroid belts, the gigantic nebula that's in Nyx, the space combat with the Vanduul, the actual size of this system, and just the lore behind it, I think gives them way too many opportunities to make this a very space-focused system. Start throwing derelict ships of different sizes out in the belt. Let us find their components and the stuff on board. I can't imagine that makes the game worse, but maybe they don't want to assign enough servers to the system to have that. We'll have to see as 4.4 gets built out because they're going to be adding space stations, abandoned space stations with engineering gameplay, just like they talked about were going to be in Pyro. They would fit so perfectly here. I also think there's a really good opportunity to use those individual bands of the ring to kind of build some predictability into mining. You can find certain minerals in certain parts of the belt. That's the sort of stuff that miners are looking for. It doesn't have to be super complex stuff, just place things more logically. Outside of that, there wasn't too much to see. Going back to Levski, one of the interesting things there was the public transit was actually elevators. I know that's gonna probably wreak havoc in some of your minds and keep you up at night, but what are you gonna do? Elevators and trains kind of suffer from the same problems. Either way, it is basically just a vertical track here where you're going up and down from different parts of Levski, and so the door kind of opens and closes like a train door would. You better make sure you get inside. And I've got a lot more exploring to do around Levski. This was like a first impressions. I'm going to come back on Monday and talk more deeply about this because I think there's more to be added to Levski, but the fact of the matter is that this is an addition that's not unlike those of Stanton. While Pyro is still not finished, which is rather annoying, or even have the stuff that it was supposed to launch with, they are bringing Nyx in relatively unfinished as well. Now, we knew that with the planets, but it's clear that a lot of content is going to be added as well as we go on. I don't know how I feel. I mean, I think it's okay that they're doing it this way, but at some point they've got to flip the switch where they're not doing it this way. And I know Squadron 42 seems like that obvious flip, but there are a lot of things in this game that have to be built out after Squadron comes out, and it's all up in the air. As of right now, we're still seeing space stations that look pretty similar to those in Stanton. I don't know if we're going to get a slight differentiation in Nyx like we did with Pyro, or if they're just going to say screw it and give us what they already gave us in Pyro. That's a little bit different. I don't really know. The Nyx vibe is still very much falling apart. And while I get that for an asteroid base like Levski, I do think they need to show that there is some good coordination with these people that does allow them to exist in a star system on their own. Like, some of the stuff should be put together, and I hope we see more of that. If this is the way that Nyx is starting out released, I will be very interested in seeing what happens with Castra. As of right now, we'll have to wait and see what happens with 4.4 Live before we can put in our real thoughts about how this looks. But the music is there, so that's nice. I missed the music. I don't know why the Levski music isn't playing. I had to play that on my own. But in space, I got a lot of songs that we actually don't hear very often. It almost felt like it was the music suite from 3.0 that had songs like Serenity in it, mixed with the music suite from Pyro. So I think there is quite a bit of placeholder and just kind of drag and drop to get this out the door, which feels rather Star Citizen. Elsewhere in 4.4, PDCs have been nerfed and torpedoes have been buffed. I don't know much about that, but we'll try it out near term and see if it's any good. It is an interesting change, and it should be nice when your teammate's Polaris wants to murder you all of a sudden. But I think the real incentive we need is better player turrets, so that we can incentivize more multi-crew gameplay. Either way, I'm more interested to see what they do with mining and salvage in the Nyx system anyways. So I will have more updates for you as they get more of these patches out, more features and content gets dropped in, and we can see how they're planning on launching 4.4. But for now, there's my first impressions. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for checking it out.